Sharon Allen, an Orthodox Jewish woman, discovers a hidden code in the Jewish scriptures that reveals the true Messiah.
And I'm interviewing people, man on the street. Can you take a couple minutes and do that?
No.
Okay. It's man on the street. Come on. Now, what's your Hebrew name? Take a couple minutes. Can I ask you a few questions? Okay. Hello, this is Sid Roth, and I was in New York City in the Diamond District, and this man on the street isn't so easy. I mean, as you saw, in fact, I did that several months ago, and it was cold. But we asked the question, who is Jesus? You'll be amazed at some of these answers. Let's take a look. What's your opinion of Messiah?
One day he will come, save the whole world.
And where did you get that from?
From the Jewish Bible.
And how will you know when he comes?
Well, we don't know, we hope.
Do you think there is a Jewish Messiah?
You have to do believe in it.
And do you think he's come yet?
We don't know. We believe that he's coming. When? We don't know.
But when he comes, how will you know it?
Don't worry about that. Whenever he comes, he makes sure that you know.
In your heart, what do you believe about Messiah?
But we hope he'll come. We're waiting for that. That's our only hope.
And how will we know when he comes?
I don't know exactly how. I mean,
Who is Jesus?
I don't want to. I'm not going to comment on this.
And as a Jew, who do you say Jesus is?
I have no idea. I have no idea in Christianity.
No. I said, as a Jew, he's Jewish, right?
I don't want to talk about this.
Who is Jesus?
Who is Jesus? I don't know. I'm not that sure as to who he really was, you know?
Was he Jewish?
Was he Jewish? Sure.
Could it be that the Christians follow Jesus as the Messiah, and when the Jewish Messiah comes, it'll turn out to be the Jew, Jesus?
I am aware that that's what the Christians believe, but we were not taught like that by our rabbis generation to generation.
Could Jesus have been the Jewish Messiah?
No, that I don't believe.
Do you have any reason for not believing that?
Simple reason is I'm so firmly believe in my own religion. It tells me there's not, so it's not. I don't ask questions.
Do you believe in a Messiah?
Sure.
Do you believe that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah?
It's questionable.
Do you believe he might be the Jewish Messiah?
It's possible.
If tonight Jesus came in your bedroom and you see his scarred hands, and he says, I am the Messiah, what would you say?
I would not. I would say I would go see a psychiatrist.
Thank you.
Take care.
You know, it's kind of interesting, those answers, but there was an underlying theme. And the underlying theme was, we Jews don't think for ourselves. We let the paid professionals think for us. Sharon Allen, you came from a nice, frum, traditional Jewish background in that area, from New York. Yes. So if I had held that microphone up to you back then, I don't know if you would have been, what would you have done?
You know, through the years, I have met people who believed in Yeshua, and they're not Jewish, and they would want to talk about their Messiah to me, and I would say, no, I'm not interested, but I'm so glad that he came to your people and to give you a good code of ethics.
So you would just brush them off. However, what happened to Sharon is she just had a thought. It was a God thought. I am going to prove to my husband, because he had said he believed in Jesus, that it's just mythology. It's just nothing a good Jewish person should believe in. And she started reading her Tanakh, her Jewish scriptures, and she read and she read. Then she got the Jewish commentaries. Then she talked to rabbis. And then she had the puzzle, the little pieces of the puzzle fit together. But as she researched and thought for herself, and that's the operative phrase, she thought for herself, she found something that is outrageous hidden in the Jewish scriptures that I never heard an Orthodox rabbi comment on. You took the first 10 names, a million, mentioned in the Bible of the male names, and looked up the root meanings of their names and explain what you found.
Well, by doing that, I found a message, and what the message says, mankind turns their faces towards and are appointed mortal grievous sorrow, to lament and to mourn. Then with the next set of names, it says, God who is praised comes down to instruct and to consecrate. He is sent forth as a prophet priest to be smitten and scourged, to die, to give rest and security, a quiet attitude of peace.
So in other words, she took Bereshit, Genesis, the 5th chapter. She took the first 10 names in the order, looked up the root meaning, and got the whole. That sounds Christian to me.
It did to me too. But of course, each step of the way through my research, I still decided there's no way that I can believe in that man. I must have missed something. So then I would look further and continue to research. And that was what I had done for weeks, for months, until I had the public debate with Rabbi Shachet. And then that was the turning point, because then I realized that the Christian people who say the prophecies in the Hebrew scriptures are speaking about the Jewish Messiah, I had to come to the reality that, yes, that is true.
You know what, I've studied your research, and it's wonderful, and there's something so, I know it was intriguing to you, but in the English Bibles, they usually say the angel of the Lord.
Yes.
But you found this particular person just creeping up all over the Jewish scriptures, and tell me some of your conclusions.
Well, the interesting thing is when I asked the rabbis about the Malach Hashem, who is in the Hebrew scriptures, the rabbis say, well, it's a different angel coming each time. But Malach is Aramaic for messenger. And each time the Malach Hashem, now in English, in the English Bibles, Malach, they say angel, and Hashem is Hebrew for the name that we Jews do not pronounce, the ineffable name of God, the Tetragrammaton, the letters Yud He Vav He. We don't even pronounce the name. And so we say Hashem, which in Hebrew it's the name. So Malach Hashem, each time it appears in the English Bible, you're reading angel of the Lord. But when you're reading it in Hebrew, you're reading that it is a messenger of the Yud He Vav He, a very unique messenger that continues to appear throughout the Jewish scriptures. Each time he appears, the people who see him—
Could a messenger from God have people bow down and worship him? Don't go away. We're going to find out about, as Sharon said from the Hebrew, a very, very unique messenger from God that's all over the Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures. Don't go away.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural.
Hello, YouTube, Mishpocha. Mishpocha is a Hebrew word. It means family. This is Sid Roth. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. If you've been blessed by this show, please subscribe. Then click the bell so you won't miss a single episode of It's Supernatural.
We now return to It's Supernatural.
Did you get that? Sharon Allen, raised in an Orthodox Jewish family in New York City, literally her and her husband built a synagogue, Orthodox synagogue in Irvine, California. She's thinking for herself. She's taking the Jewish scriptures, she's finding amazing things, and all of a sudden she's intrigued by what in the English Bible it says the angel of the Lord, but in the Hebrew it says the messenger. And when you read in context, every time this very special messenger of the Lord shows up, some amazing things happen. Give me some examples, Sharon.
Yes, each time the Malach Hashem would appear, the people would immediately fall to the ground. And they would fall on their faces, and they would fear for their lives. They would say they've seen God face to face, and they're going to die. And actually, if it was just a mere created being, just an angel, the angel would have to immediately say, oh, no, 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 I'm not God.
Of course.
You don't have to fear for your lives. But he didn't correct them. What he would say is shalom. In other words, he was saying peace. He was giving them psychological wholeness because he knew that they were fearing for their lives. And so each time he would give them peace, and he would proceed to share with them what he wanted to tell them. For example, when he appeared to Manoah in Judges, that's Samson's father, before Samson was born, Manoah recognized that he was seeing God face to face. And the angel comforted him, this Malach Hashem, this unique messenger of God. And Manoah was so excited, it was such a wonderful, miraculous thing that he was seeing, that he wanted to offer a sacrifice to the Malach Hashem. Now, if this was just a mere created being, an angel, he could not accept the sacrifice. Only God can accept sacrifice. You only offer God sacrifice. And so, but the Malach Hashem accepted the sacrifice of Manoah, and as the sacrifice was burning, the flames were reaching up to the heavens, and the Malach Hashem went into the flames, and in the flames went up to heaven, and Manoah says, oh, this is Pele. In other words, this is the most wonderful, miraculous thing. And this Hebrew word Pele that he uses is only used when we're talking about God. And so time and time again, every time the Malach Hashem appears in the Hebrew scriptures, this is a unique messenger that the people recognize as God. And yet he's appearing as a man.
So you think this is really Yeshua, the Messiah, before he came in the form of Jesus?
Yes, yes. You know, after I had met with Rabbi Shachet, and I went home that evening and told my family, I now believe in Yeshua as the Jewish Messiah, I now decided I must read the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant. This is what the Christians read, so for me it was a forbidden book, but now I must sit down and read it. And when I read it, and I met Yeshua in the pages of the New Covenant, it was like meeting an old friend, because I had already met him in the Hebrew Scriptures, the way that he would treat people, the things that he would say, how he would conduct himself when he would meet and talk to people. To me, I was meeting Yeshua in the Hebrew Scriptures.
Now, you make an interesting point on this New Covenant. It's really a renewed
That's
covenant.
Right.
Explain.
The Hebrew, Brit Hadashah, does not mean something brand new that had never been known before. Brit Hadashah has the meaning a renewed covenant, a renewing. In other words, in the Hebrew Scriptures, God had his work to do with the Israeli people, the Israelites, the Hebrew people, and now, which was always his intent, he was going to open it up to the whole world. So he renewed his original covenant in the Hebrew Scriptures, and he was now giving it to all the peoples of the world.
I believe there is only one Judaism. It's not the variety the rabbis have since come up with, called rabbinical Judaism, and it's not even what Christianity has come up with as something the opposite of Judaism, but it's a renewed covenant where the Spirit of God takes the Torah and makes it l'chaim, life. But when you started reading some of these prophecies, listen, she found in Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, written almost 1,000 years before Yeshua, that's Hebrew for Jesus, came to earth. Such a description, there was no way you could deny that it was taught. How could it be talking about Jesus, written almost 800 years before he even came to earth? We'll be right back. I'm expecting some miracles. Don't go away.
We'll be right back to It's Supernatural. We now return to It's Supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth back here with Sharon Allen. Sharon is an Orthodox Jewish woman that thinks for herself. As a result, she studied the Tanakh. She studied the Jewish scriptures, the Jewish commentaries, the Talmud, the Encyclopedia Judaica. She went to rabbis. Their profession is to prove Jesus is not the Messiah, but she found so much evidence. But I was asking you about a prophecy you read in our own Tanakh, Isaiah the 53rd chapter, that the ancient rabbis all were in agreement. This is speaking of King Messiah.
Yes.
Tell me about this Isaiah 53. Well, you talked about two appearances. The ancient rabbis said.
The ancient rabbis actually recognized that there would be they recognized two separate identities of the Messiah, two pictures of the Messiah that they even had names for. Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, who would come as the suffering servant, and Mashiach ben David, a Messiah, son of David, who would come as the conquering hero king.
Actually, back then, that was a pretty good spin of two different Messiahs, but today, looking back at these pictures, it could just as easily have been one Messiah, two appearances.
Yes.
Read. I want you to think for yourself. Sharon, read that.
Who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before its shearers, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people?
Sharon, I want her to stop right now. You can read this yourself. I read this to my Orthodox Jewish father, who the one thing he did not want to admit is Jesus was the Messiah, or that man, as he would refer to him. But when I read that, he said, stop reading from that Goyish Christian Bible. And I showed him I was reading from the Tanakh, the Jewish scriptures that our Orthodox rabbi had inscribed to me. It was good enough for my father, who did not want to believe it was Jesus. It's good enough for you. Sharon, when you read this, what happened inside of you?
I was shocked, I was amazed, I knew immediately this is what the Gentile people say about their Messiah. But once again, Sid, for me, there was no way that I could believe in that man. But I must say, when I read these scriptures, I was amazed, because absolutely it did sound like the story, the whole message of Yeshua why he came, why he suffered, and how God raised him on the third day.
Now let me ask you this. In Jeremiah, another Jewish prophet, it talks about a renewed covenant. Explain that.
Yes. In Jeremiah, it speaks, first it talks about how there will always be the Jewish people. He says, there's only one way not to have the Jewish people. If you can take away the stars from the sky, no more moon, no more galaxy, no more, then you can harm my Jewish people. Otherwise, they will always be there. They are his beloved people. He gives a message that there will be a new covenant, a renewed covenant, not like the covenant that he gave to the Israelites that they disobeyed his laws, but a new covenant where the law will be written on their hearts and they will worship him and obey him and follow his commandments.
You know what is so amazing to me is in what Sharon is quoting is from Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, the 31st verse, and it says this renewed covenant will accomplish something that the former covenant could not accomplish, but it would be greater than that former covenant, but it would be a renewing of that former covenant, because this is what this covenant, this renewed covenant will accomplish. Number one, God says, I, God, will not just put the blood in the temple as a sacrifice for sin, but I, God, will remember your sins no more. In other words, the shadow of what these animal sacrifices were. For instance, the Talmud says you cannot have Yom Kippur without blood. But you just have heard that number one, God says, because of this Malach Hashem, messenger of the Lord, that is reverenced as God in human form, because he will die as my replacement, by his stripes, Isaiah says, we were healed. And then this renewed covenant says we're going to know him, not just know about him, not just go to a rabbi to tell us about God, but we are going to know him for ourselves. That's why it's so important to think for yourself. And Sharon mentioned another word, that this Malach Hashem, this messenger of the Lord, said, I bring you shalom, which in the Hebrew means completeness. What Yeshua brings is complete washing away of our sins, because Isaiah says, it is your sins that have separated you from your God. You say, I haven't sinned? Have you lied? Have you stolen? Have you had other gods besides God? Have you had sex outside of marriage? Have you been involved in homosexuality? Have you been involved in the occult or the New Age or witchcraft? Have you participated with these things? All have sinned and fallen short. We all need this renewed covenant. I urge you to pray the way Sharon prayed. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, show me the truth, and I will follow it wherever it takes me. I want to think for myself. My own Orthodox Jewish father had shalom on his last day in this life. The Ruach HaKodesh came upon him. It wasn't just psychological, yes, it was mental, but it was so strong, the presence of God. For a week, I was walking in the same glory I read about in the Torah. And that glory is coming on you right now. And the scales are coming off of your eyes and out of your ears, and you are beginning to have a thought. Honor that thought. Read the Torah. Think for yourself. This is your moment.